I was standing in a sea of silk dresses and champagne glasses when I saw my name card at the very last table, wedged between two distant cousins I'd met once as a child. At my dad's wedding. My stepmom looked me right in the eye and said, "Well, we had to prioritize." That was the moment I decided they would never get the best of me again. And weeks later, they came crawling back, desperate for my help. If you've ever been shoved to the sidelines by people who were supposed to love you, you're going to feel every word of this story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because this one ends with one of the most satisfying paybacks I've ever delivered. I used to think my dad and I were unshakable. We weren't just father and daughter, we were a team. He was the one who taught me how to ride a bike, how to make my first batch of pancakes without burning them, how to tell when a used car salesman was lying to my face. When my parents split, I was 13. It was messy, but Dad made sure I knew I was still his priority. Every weekend, he'd pick me up in his beat-up truck, blasting the same old rock songs, telling me, "Kiddo, no matter what happens, you'll always be number one." That promise didn't last. 2 years after the divorce, he met her. Melissa. She was polished, the kind of woman who always smelled faintly of expensive perfume and could deliver an insult wrapped in sugar. At first, she was polite enough. She'd smile at me during dinners, ask about school, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. The kind of questions where she didn't care about the answer. I could feel her sizing me up, like I was some kind of inconvenient reminder of my dad's old life. The shift started small. My usual weekends with Dad began getting rescheduled because Melissa had planned something special meaning trips with her son, Ethan. Ethan was a year older than me, and from day one, Melissa treated him like royalty. She'd gush about his grades, his sports trophies, his bright future. Meanwhile, if I mentioned my debate club win or my art project, she'd respond with a soft, "That's nice, dear," before turning the conversation back to Ethan. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it. Maybe she was just trying to make her son feel comfortable. But then came the birthdays. For Ethan's, they rented out a whole mini-golf course. Dozens of friends, custom cake, the works. For mine, a half-eaten grocery store cake after dinner. No candles. No song. Just, "Here you go." Even Dad seemed to fall into her rhythm. Little by little, the "you're my number one" talks faded. He started saying things like, "Well, Melissa thinks," or "We all have to compromise now." But the thing about compromise is, it felt like I was the only one giving anything up. By the time I was 18, I'd learned to keep my distance. Family dinners were minefields. I'd show up, smile, play nice, and leave as soon as I could without making a scene. But deep down, I kept hoping for one moment, just one, where Dad would push back, remind me I mattered as much as Ethan. I didn't know it yet, but that hope was about to die completely, and it would happen on the day he married Melissa. The morning of my dad's wedding, I tried convincing myself it would be fine. It's just one day, I thought. Smile, take the photos, clap when they kiss, and go home. I'd even bought a dress I couldn't really afford, a deep green satin that made my skin glow and my hair look like something out of a shampoo commercial. If I was going to feel like an outsider, at least I'd look good doing it. When I arrived at the reception hall, I have to admit, it was stunning. Crystal chandeliers poured gold light over tables draped in ivory linen. Soft music floated from a string quartet tucked in the corner. The air smelled faintly of roses and champagne. For a brief moment, I let myself hope. Maybe Melissa would surprise me. Maybe I'd walk in and see my name at the front, right by Dad, like I used to be before all this. I followed the rows of tables, scanning for my place card. The front tables were easy to spot. Melissa's parents, her cousins, her aunts, all decked out in coordinated outfits like they'd just walked out of a magazine. Then Dad's side, or what should have been Dad's side. Except, Ethan was seated directly next to him, beaming like the star of the show. Next to Ethan was Melissa, then more of her family. I kept walking. And walking. Finally, I saw it. My name, in neat, swirling gold letters, sitting at the very last table. Not just at the back of the room, but tucked so far into the corner it was practically brushing the emergency exit. The people at my table? 2 distant cousins I'd met once at a funeral, one guy whose name I didn't even know, and someone's date who was already scrolling through their phone. I felt my stomach twist. My chest got tight. I just stood there, holding the little name card like it weighed 10 pounds. That's when Melissa glided up beside me, her dress sparkling like it had been sewn out of starlight. She smiled, that same sharp, perfect smile that could slice paper. "Oh," she said, tilting her head like she was feigning sympathy. "We had to prioritize seating."
"You understand." Her tone was sweet.
Her eyes?
Ice.
I could hear the string quartet playing softly behind us, but my ears were ringing. My hands itched to crumple that card into dust. Some part of me still waited for Dad to step in, to say, "No, that's my daughter. Move her up here with us."
But he didn't even look over. He was too busy laughing with Ethan. Something in me snapped.
I turned to Melissa, forced the coldest smile I could manage, and said, "Thanks for making it so easy." She blinked, a flicker of confusion crossing her face.
And then, I walked out.
No dinner.
No speeches.
No fake smiles for the photographer. I left the satin dress, the champagne toast, the whole performance behind me, because in that moment, I knew I wasn't family to them. And if I wasn't family, I wasn't going to play along anymore. When I got home that night, I kicked off my heels, let the green satin puddle onto my bedroom floor, and just sat there.
No tears. No screaming.
Just empty. My phone buzzed a few times, a couple of texts from a cousin asking if I was okay, one from a friend wanting to know how the wedding went.
I didn't reply. How do you explain to people that your own father sat you with strangers at his wedding? The next day, nothing. The day after that, still nothing. No call from Dad. No apology.
Not even a "where did you go?" It was like my silent exit had been exactly what they wanted. One less complication, one less reminder that my dad had a life before Melissa.
Fine.
If they wanted distance, I'd give it to them.
I threw myself into work.
I'd been building a solid career in event marketing, the kind of job where you have to juggle logistics, charm clients, and somehow keep 10 things from falling apart all at once. Turns out, being treated like an afterthought your whole life makes you really good at staying calm under pressure. And I got good. Fast. Within a year, I'd moved into a senior coordinator position. My projects were landing in glossy magazines. My name was becoming a small but recognizable one in the industry. Meanwhile, through the grapevine, and by grapevine, I mean my one remaining aunt who still called me, I'd hear snippets about Dad and Melissa. Big fancy parties. Ethan getting accepted into some elite internship. Melissa hosting charity galas where she posed like she was royalty. Not once did I get an invitation. I wasn't bitter, not exactly. More resolved. I had my own life now, and I was building it without them. Then, one afternoon, I was sitting in my office going over floor plans for a high-profile corporate gala when my phone lit up. Dad. For a second, I thought maybe he'd butt-dialed me. But when I answered, his voice was tight, urgent. "Hey, we need to talk. It's about Melissa. And the business deal." Business deal? I didn't know they even had one. That was the first tiny crack. I didn't know it yet, but within weeks, they would go from ignoring my existence to begging for my help. And I was going to enjoy every second of making them squirm. When my dad called that first time, I didn't rush to respond. I let his voicemail sit there overnight, unread. The next morning, another missed call. Then a text. "Dad, please, can you call me? It's urgent." I could almost hear the tension behind those words, the kind of tension that only shows up when someone wants something. On the third day, I finally called back. Not because I was feeling generous, but because curiosity was killing me. He picked up on the second ring. Finally, he sighed, like I'd been the one keeping him waiting. "Listen. Melissa's been working on a charity event. Big deal. Press coverage, VIPs, the whole thing. But our planner just quit. Out of nowhere. The event's in 6 weeks." I leaned back in my chair, twirling a pen between my fingers. "And you're telling me this because—" He cleared his throat. "Because you're good at this. And it's important. We need someone who can pull it together fast." I let the silence stretch. "You mean, you need me?" Well, he hesitated. Yes. It took everything in me not to laugh. The same people who couldn't be bothered to give me a real seat at their wedding were now desperate for me to swoop in and save their big, glittery event. I kept my voice calm. "Sounds stressful. But I'm swamped with my own projects right now." "Please," he said, lowering his voice. "Melissa's having a hard time. She's worried this could hurt her reputation. We'd pay you, of course." I imagined Melissa pacing in some high-ceilinged living room, clutching her phone, panicked at the thought of a perfect social image cracking. "Oh, I'm sure it's tough," I said lightly. "But you have to prioritize." "Right." The silence on the line was delicious. I could practically hear the moment Dad realized I was throwing her wedding words right back at him. "I'll think about it," I added, before hanging up. Over the next week, the messages kept coming. From Dad. From Melissa herself, though hers were colder. "We really need a decision soon. This is getting urgent. It would mean a lot to your father." The power shift was intoxicating. And the more they pushed, the more I started to think, maybe I would take this job. Not to help them, but to make sure they never forgot what they'd done to me. I agreed to take the job. But not before making them sweat a little more. "All right," I told Dad over the phone, my voice smooth, "I'll help you. But I'm on a tight schedule. My clients come first. And my rates have gone up." Melissa didn't even try to hide her irritation. "We're not looking for anything extravagant," she said, her tone clipped. I smiled into the receiver. "Oh, I know. But you're asking me to salvage a 6-week event with VIP guests and media coverage. That's not just work, that's a miracle. And miracles? They bill high." They agreed. Of course they did. Because they needed me more than I needed them. Step 1. Take control. From the moment I stepped into the planning meetings, I made sure everyone knew I was in charge. I spoke directly to vendors, gave timelines, and made executive decisions. Melissa tried to micromanage, hovering over seating charts, nitpicking floral arrangements, but I would politely, professionally, shut her down. "Melissa, that shade of rose is already ordered and paid for. Changing it now would be messy." Her fake smile would tighten every time I used her own passive-aggressive tone against her. When it came to the guest list and table placements, the part they had prioritized so well at the wedding, I took particular care. Front tables? Reserved for major donors and press. Melissa's friends who loved to gossip? Moved to the side. And Melissa's family, her precious family, placed respectfully close to the stage, but not at it. As for me, I made sure my name was printed on the program as event director in bold, and that my reserved seat was front and center, right next to a key sponsor who adored me. In casual conversation with vendors or VIPs, I'd drop little hints. "Oh yes, I've known Melissa and her husband for years, though we've had some interesting history." Enough to spark curiosity, but never enough to be unprofessional. Melissa hated it. I could see it in the way she'd tense whenever someone laughed with me or complimented my work in front of her. The night of the event, everything went flawlessly. Guests were dazzled, photographers were everywhere, and the press was eating it up. Midway through the evening, the main sponsor took the stage to thank the incredible organizer who made tonight possible, and then gestured for me to join him in front of hundreds of people. I walked up, heels clicking, every camera flashing. I thanked the crowd, then glanced directly at Melissa and Dad. "I was taught," I said into the mic, smiling sweetly, "that when you plan something important, you have to prioritize. And tonight, I prioritized making sure every guest felt valued and respected." It was subtle enough to seem like a general statement, but Melissa knew. Dad knew. It was my way of holding up a mirror to their own words from the wedding, in front of everyone they were desperate to impress. Melissa's smile was frozen, her knuckles white around her champagne glass. Dad just looked small. When the night ended, people congratulated me more than them. My name was the one on everyone's lips. And as I left, I didn't wait for thanks. Because I'd already gotten what I came for, the satisfaction of knowing they would never forget the night I became the star of their show. Walking out of that venue, the air felt different. Cooler. Lighter. Like I'd been carrying this invisible weight for years, every little slight, every quiet humiliation, and finally set it down. I didn't get an apology from Melissa. I didn't expect one. People like her don't apologize, they just pretend things never happened. Dad did send me a short text the next morning. "Thanks for everything. You really saved the night." No mention of the wedding. No acknowledgement of the past. But that was fine. Because the truth was, I didn't need his validation anymore. That's the thing about being pushed to the last table. It teaches you don't have to fight for a seat in someone else's life. You can build your own table. Invite the people who value you. Leave the rest outside. And when the same people who once treated you like an afterthought come knocking, desperate for your help, you can give it, or not,
but either way, you get to decide. For me, helping them wasn't about forgiveness. It was about reclaiming control.
About showing them, and myself, that I'd risen far beyond the corner seat they thought I deserved.
And honestly,
knowing they'd never forget the night I turned their priority into my own stage.
that was the sweetest payback.
If that revenge hit you right in the soul, hit like, drop a comment about the worst family betrayal you've ever seen, and subscribe for more stories where karma gets served, ice cold.